whenever entering an arc and finding out anything about, the antagonists that we're going to be seeing all the main characters face up, there's the questions are, what are these characters capable of? What are their powers like? What are their capabilities really going to be? And I think that's just a general question and a general kind of train of thought that ends up being tied to most fandoms of any of these battle series. And you can either kind of guess just based off of maybe like some of their appearance and whatnot. I think names are usually like a really good tell, but also knowing something about the author themselves. So in this one, I want to talk about probably the one that started the entire question set off for the big bad guys right now. Well, not counting Megicula, because we already know Megicula is overarching. But out of the three, we have the Dark Triad. We have Dante, who seems to be their leader out of the three siblings. You have Vanica, who's, I would say, the most mysterious, just based off of one thing about her that I'll get to in a moment. But the one I want to talk about is Zeno. So I've seen his name translated both with the N at the end for Zenon, or, with it off as Zeno. But as right now, his character, there's a couple questions that really are surrounding him, and I think him more than others, just based off of that display we saw. I mean, can't even really say it was a display, just the aftermath, the complete and total, massacre that he did at the Diamond Kingdom. And I think he will be the kind of main focus out of the three of them. When it comes to a showdown, I'm kind of guessing it will be Yuna against Dante, Noelle against Vanica, and Asta against Zeno, and probably some other characters helping them, along this battle. But as it were, I believe that Zeno is going to be more of the primary one out of the three. I mean, they're all big deals, but him specifically, I think, will take a lot more spotlight. So the question is what can really get it from him? One thing that I will note is the mark, obviously, on his head. This big weird black, tattoo brand insignia, stigmata that is just, overarching, a good chunk of his forehead, even down, the left side of his face, is, I think, an obvious mark. I mean, you see it on Dante, and you don't see Vanica's, but I think we can assume she has it too, probably over her eye that is covered. But I think they're a tell. And one of the things that I think is a really good tell is when you have mangaka that do, they've done more than one series. And I don't mean one-shots, even ones that are, that they got acts, a short, 2 or 3 volumes. You can go back and find a lot of information out of them. I mean, obviously, something that you can look at for Tabata, you go back and read Hungry Joker, the series that he did before Black Clover. You can look at Dante's mark and see that it's very similar to that of the mark that the main character Haji had of Hungry Joker. Not convinced enough? And you ever really wonder where Charlotte's very strange, forward bladed helmet came from? There was a character that Noelle has a strong resemblance to Vivian from Hungry Joker, who also very rose themed, had steel manipulating powers and had that very bladed helmet. When you have good ideas, especially designs, you get a chance for another work after one gets axed, carry over whatever you think is, not to be wasted. Obviously something like those designs. But what about Zeno is notable in that aspect? When you look at not only the mark, but what can, like I said, clothing and name can say something. We can't really get anything about Zeno from his outfit. I mean, really, the three members of the Dark Triad, they're just really, you're only really looking at this big black furred coat that they're wearing, this big cloak that just has a mane, around the top portion of it. So you can't really get much out of it. But like I said, you can look at the name of the characters. Now, again, when you try and guess a mangaka, like I said, one of the ways is knowing them. When you have somebody that's, very prone to, for instance, obviously this channel, people know me, big fan of Hiramashima. I know that every time he does work, it's going to have time travel in it or some form of time fuckery because the dude just loves time stuff. That's always going to be in it. But there is, there's a very big shift between his works when you had, like, Brave Master was very weird in its powers, Fairy Tail was obviously very magic-based, and then to Eden Zero, which, even though you had magic existed in Wraith Master, and obviously a primary aspect of Fairy Tail, and then Eden Zero has sort of, like, mana-related tech. It's got, you can look at it a little bit magic-y, but it's more towards, like, sci-fi, but there's a very strong gap between Tabata series Hungry Joker, which, if you haven't read it, is based around, like, the main character's a scientist, and their powers, instead of magic, they have these things called Eureka, which are significant things in the advancements of science and technology that give them their powers. The main character has, what was it, the apple that fell on Isaac Newton that he kind of came up with the theory about gravity. If I'm wrong on who that was, just please don't make fun of me. I haven't read it in a while, and I'm not the best at science. Anyway, the thing with that is, when Tabata had this whole series planned out, and obviously I know it was axed, but you have to keep in mind, when these mangaka make their series, they don't think it's going to get axed, they want it to do well, and they put all this effort and hard work into creating it, so they're going to have a lot of stuff set up and stuff prepared. One of the biggest tells of that is, if they do, unfortunately get their series axed, they start rushing out stuff. Like, they're like, I'm not going to let certain things go to waste, like cool power-up forms and, like, giving characters, like, crazy new abilities that they're like, oh, I'm going to save this for until chapter 300 and something, and they're like, oh, you're getting axed? And they're just like, well, I guess I'm just going to throw this out now, because it's now or never. But Tabata, having done a very science-based series, I don't think he's like some super genius scientist, but I'm willing to bet he knows, like, enough that he had a science-themed battle series all planned out, that he's going to have, like, a lot of stuff that he made that he never got to use. And Zeno, or if you include the N, Zenon, there's two things about his name that you can really kind of get. Zenon, element 54, oh, that's not what I'm trying to click, sorry. Element 54 in the periodical table of elements, which is an element, let me try really hard to move this over. The element used for things like lighting, it does stuff with ultraviolet rays. It can be used to create arcs of plasma, which obviously is going to be something that you can really do a lot of stuff with, because I think one thing we can guess about the Dark Triad very easily is their magic is going to be really powerful, and I think magic science would be like a thing to really set, like, wow, these guys are broken. I mean, they do have some pretty good tech with, like, those big walkers, so I could believe it if they have some form of being a combination. It's like, oh, we can make there, it's all magic created, but we're creating magic and then using science to make it better. Like, you're like, oh yeah, I have, I'm like, if you paired up Marileona, like Marileona, she's like, oh, I'm a fire mage, look at my fire stuff. And you're like, how could it succeed even better? And somebody's like, here's this guy who's a magnesium wizard. And then he's like, what can that do? And it's like, well, let's see how magnesium burns. If you want to know how magnesium burns, go look it up. And other, like, crazy stuff that you can kind of combine with, I mean, I look at, for instance, the battle with how was it go? Was it Raid, the elf that took over Dorothy? Sally was able to use science by like, hey, here's water, look, use your lightning, and then Magna used fire, and, that'll create a much more powerful explosion. They're being smart about it. Tabata, though, like I said, I don't think he's like some pro scientist. I think he knows enough about science that he could easily pass this off and do it right. But not only Zenon, when you look at, if you go by, like, oh, his name is spelled with a Z, but it's pronounced the same, and Tabata, I mean, like a lot of mangaka, like to have, like, little plays on the characters' names that have some form of tell with their power. I mean, yeah, that's been a long-going thing, and it's not even just mangaka. I think a lot of writers do it. I mean, I think it's a fun thing to do, and you have, like, this, oh, what's this guy's name? His name is Volcano. Well, I wonder what his power is going to be, and it's just like, I think we can guess. But anyway, besides that, if we go by the spelling that is used by, by the official translations, you have Zeno, subtracting the N. I mean, the other one, Zenon with the N, starting with a Z and ending with an N. It's like Gift of Zeus. I doubt he's going to be a lightning guy. But with this, Zeno, an ancient Greek philosopher, manipulated paradoxes that defended the belief that motion and change are illusionary. So you can have some, I can't even grasp like what kind of like weird crazy thing that Tabata would kind of create out of this, out of the top of my head. If you're wondering, like, again, the extent of what he was going to do with science stuff, you're like, I don't know, Rex. He's doing Black Clover. It's all magic based. Go read Hungry Joker and some of the crazy stuff that he was doing over there. I mean, one of the bigger bad guys had like he had this one tool that let him freely like mutate his body. So he essentially was just this absurd shapeshifter using scientific mutation. Again, there's a lot there you can really look at, but. Again, this is a theory. I think the theory for Zenon, based off of the fact that, you know, it can use to make light, ultraviolet light as well, and plasma, and the mark on Zeno's head kind of looks like, you know, some sun. And you can kind of look at it and see like maybe like a cross, but I think the center of it being a lot more round and bulbous might be, you know, maybe something like a sun. Or if you actually look up, I'm gonna have to type really quick, so bear with me. If you look up Zenon and a plasma ball, there is a you know, I'm sure a lot of people have seen these. You know, it's this kind of like orb with a, you know, a like kind of like pedestal in the middle, and it shoots like these big plasma arcs all around the inside. You touch it and the plasma arc will go to your finger. That kind of looks like that as well. I'll subtract the, you know, orb in there. You have the ball in the middle with these big kind of flaring out beams all around it. You know, I think it's a pretty viable kind of situation to look at, especially when you know, go further into Tabata's planning in his head, his track record, and the just kind of grasp that he's going to have to really demonstrate the full extent of what the Dark Triad are going to be. And like I said, I think that Zeno is going to be the primary one out of the three, so him getting this crazy of a power would be really neat. And maybe like all of them. I mean, again, also like I said, the mark on Dante's head kind of looks like the mark on the main character of Hungry Joker, who used gravity powers. Maybe this guy will use gravity. Who knows? And whatever Vanica will use, maybe we'll get a little bit more to look at when we see what exactly her mark is in this. Guessing, you know, it'll have something to do with their demon powers. Maybe kind of like how when Asta's anti-magic goes over his body. Anyway, regardless of which, comment below, tell me your thoughts are. We're going to be a while, I guess, until we would end up seeing his power. I mean, we could easily see a flex of any of them or all of them next chapter. But I wanted to get this out there before we ended up, you know, getting a canon explanation. Because one of the things about theorizing that is fun is, you know, putting some pieces together and then seeing if you were close, or, I mean, if you're not, who cares? It's fun to speculate. But other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, but press the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.